The last request we have comes from Arthur, and he's asked me to cover a webcomic called Inhuman. Now, he's told me it's another mature comic that has like an edgelord feel to it, plus some other things I might have to bring up at some point, though maybe not, but I'm willing to give it a chance, and any other major content warning that wasn't mentioned will go up before this intro. Otherwise, let's talk about Inhuman. From the About page, this comic's been around since 2003, and was made by Icarus, going with male pronouns, and I guess we'll know a possible inspiration for this story, especially when this is a futuristic one, set about 1,000 years ahead of the current year, where a new Earth religion called rulerism has spread throughout the galaxy after gaining the ability to do so, and much to many extreme groups, they seem okay with killing anyone who doesn't convert. It attempts to ask the question, what is a human? A miserable pile of secrets? Or a hairball, since we have furry characters in this still? Let's find out! I'll be looking at the first two acts, Notebook and Clockwork, and we begin at a military base on some alien planet, where we see a medic named Sulsika Lifa, who is writing to her parents about her joining the army, fighting against the rulerists. She's met by her new commanding officer, Sola Flint, who mentions that they're going to be retrieving a bioweapon soon. Note the use of watercolors. This comic maintains the style of color and design even till now, so it might be interesting seeing how it grows from this early on. Anyway, turns out her family is actually dead, since the rulerists took over her planet last summer and killed everyone who resisted. So in a way, their hatred to humans seems somewhat justified when they claim to be doing this for good, when it's not. They meet their pilot, Koji, who seems to like dancing. No, not now! I'm guessing that since we're dealing with a universe of multiple galaxies and races, we should expect Anthros to come in the humanoid and somewhat feral variety, while still acting human. Either way, since they're going after a bioweapon, it's possible that the jump gates might detect smuggled material or cause the weapon to go off. Standard precautions, though neither he nor Sola get that Lifa has gone through a lot of trauma that would affect her treating any psychological sickness they get, especially given what she's seen. They arrive on the planet they are to find the weapon and meet the contact who has it, named Dr. Achnid. As it turns out, the bioweapon is actually a person named Grey. He was apparently being used by the humans and left here, and they don't know his real name or what his deal is in general. He's definitely aggressive, given their attempts to cut his hair and all, but what exactly makes him a bioweapon? Either way, she goes in and gets a good look at him. Human. He's human. Hate doesn't overrule logic. I feel betrayal, anger, terror, hate, disgust, things I can't control. He might as well been the one to pull the trigger, to me. I guess that would be enough to make you ignore the possible abuse this guy has had from his own kind, or the fact that there has to be resistances in their own to oppose this religion. That's what hate does. It takes control and gets you to only see the bad. Often it is within reason, and at least she has a little pity for him. Well, either way, she hasn't put on his old clothing, as she isn't touching him. She then takes him back to her crew, where she gets commented on for her incredible racism. I mean, that much is obvious. Apparently, rulerists live to save everyone's souls from themselves, which means killing anyone who doesn't convert. I suppose this reflects the nature of extremists who see anyone as a threat if they don't do things their way, and it ends up blanketing whatever the original intent of the religion might have had. But also you could say that with human nature, it's kind of inevitable that the truly deplorable will take hold over everything. In other words,
if there is evil in this world, it lurks in the hearts of men.
Or the human. Anyway, Obviously, there will be some rulerists that are alien, since they would have been converted. And right now they're looking for Grey, despite them being the ones who abandoned him. Also, it seems Sola is more level-headed than Lifa, since she gets that one race does not alone make up the entire rulelist religion. So she doesn't let that cloud her view on who they are meant to be fighting. Considering Grey, that should be obvious. However, Lifa does hear him say, "Mercy," despite their initial thoughts on him being mute, making Lifa want to do an exam on him. But he crashes out of bed and locks himself up. Hard to tell with this, but the need to sedate him, which causes Lifa to go into another deep thought about, will this make me any different from them for hating them like this? Is he no different from me, being scared and treated like a lab rat? We also get a quick glimpse of Grey's inner mind, since someone told him that when a dog is mad, they wag their tail, and when it growls, it's happy. Certainly messed up thinking, but once he gets the sedatives, he ends up forced back down the rabbit hole of darkness and despair. And within that subconscious, he is wrapped up in something and looking at a cat. I will say, for a webcomic early on in this style, there is effort to blend colors together and offer a surreal atmosphere. The crew is forced to go silent for a bit, as it turns out the rulerists might have found their base. Probably knew about it for a long time, and know they have Grey. They don't have anyone they can pass him off to, except for one person, Lifa's brother. The ship that was nearby offers to accompany them for a bit, and even offers to do a love tap? Koji explains in a wall-breaking moment? Basically, since the rulerists are looking for a ship that made the earlier trip, the love tap is to fool them into thinking otherwise. Later, the ones who made the tap board the ship, led by Ashido Tsukiyo, who appears to be a bad alien. He and his crew are curious about what she's been writing in her notebook and how it relates to her brother. And well, based on what I can make out, Brother Kiyotoshi is a bit of an alcoholic. And they had to have fought a bit, after the massacre and all that. While she tried helping him, nothing could change him. The notebook was the last thing he gave her since then. Hence the title. The next few pages are mostly spent with them agreeing to help each other at least, refuel at that one station, fly through a minefield, before finally arriving on Lifa's home planet. She thinks to herself about how it feels to be escorting Grey around, like it's some poor babysitting parody, and if her brother has changed since she left or not. Her town almost looks similar to what could be found on Earth, making me wonder about how space culture works compared to our own. But otherwise, we see her brother. Based on the dialogue, he seems unchanged to her, though he appears very willing to take in Grey for her. But as the act ends, he does want more than that. He wants to be forgiven, but it doesn't appear to happen. Time is passing on, and it's passing on without him. Act 2 opens with Kiyotoshi reading into what they know about Grey, regarding his blindness, schizophrenia, and him having a more electromagnetic field than them. He's approached by his friend, Jet, who offers them a ride. Kiyo tries convincing him that Grey isn't, crazy, like he actually understands him better than his sister. Especially since he can buckle himself in a car. But once again, we dive back into his psyche to see what might have happened with him. Seems like his real name might be Darren. The cat keeps showing up again. Something about family. Jeez, what the hell happened to you, man? At least Kiyo is a lot more generous and nicer than his sister. Maybe I got the flashback wrong and that she's the abuser. Right now I'm gravitating toward him more since he's shown more compassion than she has. And yes, that's even knowing that her hatred has to do with trauma and the loss of their family. So she's hopefully going to grow out of hating those who had nothing to do with her tragic backstory. And hell, it seems Grey is starting to become more talkative, now that someone is actually talking to him like an individual. Heck, Kiyo is even treating him like an individual since he notices Grey's bleeding feet due to some glass they got on him, and tries to reassure him that he isn't going to hurt him. He knows and understands that Grey has some serious trauma, so he takes every precaution he can to help him out. This is probably the first time in a long while that Gray's experienced any kind of empathy. Though even Kyo knows it can't last for long, since at some point, reality is going to have to kick in, and he doesn't know what to do when it does. He isn't even sure of why he's doing anything these days. Perhaps this is the complex nature of him changing. But honestly, he seems to be exactly what Gray needs, since he starts having a nightmare about the experiments he went through and... Oh God! What do you think you are? You're a machine! You are not human! You are our machine! You have no feeling. You are not able to feel. If we tell you to kill Xenos, you will kill the goddamn Xenos! Whoa, slow down there, Colonel Miles. Now you're making it sound like your religion was never about peace, but just the extermination or subjugation of space aliens. Also said Xenos are all animal-like. You should be learning about what this means for your planet and why they look like your native animals, and not kill people! This messed up train of thought is what made Gray resist their orders, wanting to commit suicide, but nevertheless, the cognitions of war force him to continue killing everyone, including the cat? Well, he finally wakes up, and Kyo, of course, tries to ask him about it since he relates about the nothings he had in his life. Everyone's got their secrets, I suppose. And despite his better judgment, he has him come along to town to shop. Despite being a ghost town, there are still some people left who are unaffected by the war. Though unfortunately, Gray is about to experience what it means to be taken advantage of by those who despise humans. Or they could be cultists. That's what Kyo calls them anyway, and he's able to get him back before they can take him away. Of course, the ones who do share a resentment of humans come in, despite knowing that Kyo helps Outworlders get back on their feet. I guess they don't see the same in Gray, and while Gray has shown to not be as blind as they make him, when he sees Kyo getting into a fight, he leaps into action as his PTSD is causing him to go into kill mode. Though he is restrained before he can attempt to attack any further. Harmless, huh? Our business is done here. But you better watch out, Litha. That human will dig you a grave. Asshole, you started it! Haven't you heard of self-defense? Kyo says he wants to talk with Gray about what happened, but he has to leave him for like 5 minutes. Clearly he doesn't know what Gray went through, but even he should know that leaving him alone is a bad idea. Well, actually, nothing bad happens. Gray just thinks about if anybody cares about him, and Kyo comes back. In a rare instance of humor that I found decent, when he says that Gray looked like a scolded puppy after he stopped him from killing, we see that Gray saw those attackers as angry dogs, while he sees himself as a kitty. Guess that explains the cat calls and hallucinations. Pretty much, Kyo is warming up to Gray a lot more, and despite Gray having more of those nasty thoughts from the past, he remains stable and able to help each other get home. Especially now that I see Kyo does actually drink a lot, though he still doesn't come off abusive like it might have been implied. Thus, the act ends with Kyo in bed, and one of Gray's inner thoughts telling him that he could leave any time, in case they abuse him again. But he wishes to protect him, even if his inner thoughts consider it the wrong choice. So, yeah. Despite some instances of graphic material, that wasn't too bad. It's very heavy on the topics of war, racism, and post-traumatic stress, and what attempts at humor usually come off a bit weak or overshadowed by everything else, but I do see some potential in things getting better over time. The comic may have well been based on personal experiences, or as close to it as possible, and Icarus thought he could make a sci-fi story about it. From what I was told, the story's edgy writing and what the author has posted in the past might come off as a bad sign, but I'm waiting till I get further in before I can see any parallels to it. As it is now, the first act got me to sympathize with Gray at least, and then later care for Kyo. I'm hoping with Litha she'll start growing into a more likable and sympathetic character as well, as otherwise it's not easy siding with her on stuff. One last thing to note is, apparently, at some point, Icarus mentioned that he didn't consider this a furry comic, because Chewbacca has fur too, but you don't see anyone yiffing Wookiees. Yeah, not how it works. They're still Anthro, and you'd be surprised at how many people want to screw Chewbacca. I don't mean like from his own kind, but whatever. Besides, he appears to have his own persona and suit, so maybe that's also something that changed over time. Other than that, the comic is fine at this point, and I am interested to see what happens next. I'm also interested in seeing the evolution of his art, given what it is used. I'm sorry it took so long, but hopefully we can wrap up this year with the bonus objective and the Christmas review. Until then, I'm the Media Hunter, medias my prey, and reviewing them my way.